It was a bright sunny afternoon when Anna walked into Greg's apartment, her heart light with anticipation. She had been looking forward to this moment for days, finally spending some quality time with her fiancé after weeks of his busy work schedule. Her mind was filled with dreams of the future they had planned together. As she stepped inside, she immediately noticed that something felt off. The air was heavier than usual, the silence thick and uncomfortable. She called out his name, her voice carrying through the apartment, but there was no reply. Frowning, Anna moved toward the bedroom, thinking maybe Greg was busy with something or perhaps on the phone. What she saw next shattered her world in an instant. There, in the middle of the room, was Greg, her fiancé, locked in a passionate embrace with her best friend, Lily. Time seemed to freeze. Anna's breath caught in her throat as she took in the scene before her, the betrayal so raw and painful that she could hardly breathe. Her heart raced, her mind scrambling for some explanation. But there was none. There was nothing but the sight of Greg, the man she had planned her future with, and Lily, the friend she had trusted above all others. A wave of disbelief washed over her, followed by an overwhelming sense of rage. Her body trembled, but she forced herself to speak. "What is this?" she managed to say, her voice barely a whisper. Both Greg and Lily froze, their faces filled with guilt and panic, but neither made a move to explain. Anna's hands clenched into fists, her nails digging into her palms as the full weight of the betrayal hit her. In that moment, the life she had envisioned with Greg crumbled, leaving nothing but a broken shell of the woman she had been moments ago. Her eyes burned with unshed tears, but no words could escape her lips. The betrayal was too much, too deep. And in that moment, Anna knew her life would never be the same again. As Anna stumbled backward, her vision blurred with unshed tears, she couldn't comprehend the sight before her. Her heart pounded in her chest, and her breath came in shallow gasps. This couldn't be real. It felt like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. Her feet moved instinctively, backing away from the apartment, but her mind screamed for answers. Greg and Lily, the two people she trusted most in the world, had just shattered her. The anger bubbling inside her was overwhelming. She wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, but words failed her. They could see the hurt in her eyes, the betrayal, but nothing changed. Nothing could undo what she had just witnessed. She rushed out of the apartment, her mind in a frenzy, as she headed toward the elevator. She felt a sickening twist in her stomach, and for a moment, the walls of the building seemed to close in on her. The elevator doors slid open, but Anna couldn't bring herself to step inside. Instead, she turned and fled down the stairs. Every step she took felt like an eternity, her mind replaying the scene over and over again. She had been so blind, so naive, thinking that everything was fine. She couldn't stop her mind from spiraling. How long had it been going on? Was it all a lie? Anna's hands trembled as she clutched her phone tightly, scrolling through her contacts for someone, anyone, to call. But she couldn't bring herself to reach out. She didn't want to burden anyone with her pain. Her world had just been turned upside down, and in that moment, Anna didn't know who she was anymore. Her future with Greg, the life she had dreamed of, all of it felt like a distant memory. Anna stepped outside into the cold air, gasping for breath as the wind stung her skin. The world felt like it had stopped spinning, leaving her in a vacuum of confusion and heartbreak. The city, bustling with life, seemed so distant now. Everyone was moving forward, while Anna stood frozen, trapped in her own grief. She didn't know where to go from here, but she knew she couldn't go back to Greg. Not after what he had done. The emotional ache was unbearable, and all she wanted was to escape, to run far away from the wreckage of her life. As the minutes dragged on, Anna found herself at a nearby park, though she couldn't remember how she got there. The world around her was a blur. She sat down on a bench, staring at the empty path ahead of her, not sure whether she wanted to scream or just disappear. Her mind raced with 1,000 questions, each one more painful than the last. How long had Greg and Lily been seeing each other behind her back? How could they have been so selfish? She thought she knew them both, trusted them completely. But now, she felt like a fool. The betrayal cut deeper than she could have ever imagined. The anger she had felt earlier began to fade into a profound sadness, and the tears she had been holding back finally spilled over, her face streaked with the evidence of her broken heart. She didn't understand why they'd done it, why they'd chosen to destroy everything they'd built together. The worst part was that it wasn't just Greg. It was Lily too, the person she had confided in, the friend she had shared her most vulnerable moments with. They had both stabbed her in the back, and the wound was so deep that she wasn't sure she would ever be able to heal. The weight of the betrayal was suffocating, and she could feel it pulling her under, drowning her in her own sorrow. A soft breeze brushed against her skin, but it offered little comfort. Anna didn't want to be comforted. She wanted answers. She wanted to know why. Why her? Why them? She couldn't comprehend how her life had gone from what she thought was perfect to a complete nightmare in the blink of an eye. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, but she ignored it. She wasn't ready to talk to anyone, not yet. She didn't want to explain the pain she was feeling. She didn't even know how to begin. So she sat in the park, lost in her grief, waiting for some semblance of clarity to return, though she wasn't sure if it ever would. As Anna sat there, her phone buzzed once more, breaking the silence of her sorrow. Reluctantly, she pulled it out of her pocket, her fingers trembling as she unlocked the screen. It was a message from Greg. "We need to talk. I'm sorry, Anna. I never meant for this to happen." Her heart squeezed painfully in her chest, the words only serving to deepen her anger. She couldn't believe what she was reading. How could he apologize for this? How could he act like everything could just be fixed with a message? It was clear to her now, Greg didn't understand the magnitude of what he had done. He didn't understand how completely he had destroyed her trust. He was sorry, but sorry wasn't enough. She had given him everything, her heart, her trust, her future, and in return, he had shattered it all. Anna gripped the phone tightly, her knuckles turning white. She wanted to reply, to tell him how she felt, to tell him how much he had hurt her. But she couldn't bring herself to do it. Her emotions were too raw, too volatile. Instead, she stared at the screen for a moment longer, as if hoping the message would magically make sense or explain everything. But it didn't. There were no explanations that could undo the pain. She typed a quick reply, "We're done, Greg. I can't do this." Her finger hovered over the send button for a moment, and for the first time, Anna realized that this was the final nail in the coffin of their relationship. She pressed send, and the message was gone, leaving only silence in its wake. She stared at the phone for a few more moments, feeling the weight of her decision settle over her. There was no turning back now. Anna stood up, her legs unsteady as she took a step away from the bench. The cold air seemed to cut through her, but it did little to shake the numbness that had settled over her. She had made her decision, but it felt surreal. She felt like a stranger in her own life, as if everything had been turned upside down. She looked around the park, at the people walking by, lost in their own lives. It all seemed so distant to her now. She was no longer part of that world. She was alone. The weight of the breakup settled in, heavier than the chill in the air. It was the first time in a long while that she felt truly isolated, like a single leaf blowing in the wind. She had no idea where she was going, or what to do next, but she knew she couldn't stay there. Not after everything. She started walking, her feet moving on autopilot as her mind drifted between thoughts of Greg, of Lily, and of the future that was now uncertain. She felt like she was floating in a sea of confusion, drifting aimlessly without a destination. The emptiness inside her grew with every step, but she kept walking, unwilling to let herself stop, unwilling to succumb to the overwhelming grief. She needed to keep moving, even if it was just to escape the thoughts that threatened to drown her. It had been days since Anna had walked out of Greg's apartment, days since she had sent the text that ended everything. Yet as the hours dragged on, her anger only deepened. She couldn't understand how it had all come to this. Greg, the man she had loved and trusted, had betrayed her in the worst way imaginable. And Lily, her best friend, had stabbed her in the back. Every corner of her apartment felt suffocating, each piece of furniture, a reminder of the life she had once believed was perfect. The silence in the air weighed heavily on her. Anna sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her phone, the screen flashing with Greg's repeated attempts to reach her. He had apologized more times than she could count, but each message felt empty, like words with no meaning. The betrayal was too deep for mere apologies to fix. She had told herself she would never speak to him again, but now, with each message he sent, Anna found herself torn. The anger that had burned hot and bright now flickered, replaced by a sorrow that felt almost worse. She needed closure, needed to confront Greg face to face. She couldn't keep living in this emotional purgatory. With a deep breath, Anna picked up her phone and dialed Greg's number. It rang once, twice before he picked up. "Anna, please, just let me explain," he pleaded, his voice soft and desperate. "I never meant for any of this to happen." Anna's grip tightened on the phone, and for a moment she was silent, gathering her thoughts. This was it. This was her chance to hear the words that would finally reveal why he did what he did. But the bitterness inside her made it hard to keep calm. She had heard enough. "No, Greg. You don't get to explain. You don't get to fix this. We're done." After ending the call with Greg, Anna stood there in the middle of her living room, the silence thick around her. The phone felt heavier in her hand, and she could still hear his pleading words echoing in her ears. She wanted to scream, to throw the phone across the room, but instead she simply stared at the device, willing it to stop taunting her with the reminder of the man who had once been her everything. The harsh words she had spoken to Greg had felt satisfying in the moment, but now they only left her feeling hollow. The emptiness in her chest deepened, and Anna suddenly felt the full weight of her loneliness. She had thought that leaving him behind would be easy. After all, how could anyone stay with someone who had betrayed them so completely? But now that the decision was made, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like the loss of everything. Her phone buzzed once more, and Anna's stomach turned. It was a message from Lily. "Please, Anna, I'm so sorry. I need to explain. Let me make this right." Her finger hovered over the screen, unsure of what to do. Part of her wanted to ignore the message, pretend that Lily didn't exist anymore. But the other part of her, a part she hated for being so weak, wanted to hear Lily's explanation, wanted to understand how her best friend could do this to her. With a shaky breath, Anna typed a short reply. "I don't know how you can explain this, but if you're serious, we need to talk." She hit send, feeling the weight of the decision like a stone sinking in her stomach. She had made the decision to face Lily. But deep down, Anna knew there was no going back from this. The meeting with Lily was set. Anna arrived at the cafe, her mind a storm of emotions. She had agreed to meet, but every step she took toward the table where Lily sat felt like a battle. Lily was sitting with her head down, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee. She looked up when Anna approached, and Anna could see the pain in her eyes. The guilt was almost palpable, hanging in the air like an unspoken apology. "Anna," Lily said softly, her voice trembling. "I know you're angry and I don't blame you. But you have to know that this was a mistake. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Anna sat down across from her, the space between them feeling like a chasm that could never be bridged. "How long?" Anna asked, her voice cold. "How long were you and Greg involved?" Lily's eyes filled with tears, and she bit her lip, trying to hold it together. "It wasn't like that at first. It was one moment, one weak, stupid moment, and it just kept happening," she admitted, her voice breaking. Anna's stomach churned at the words. One moment. One mistake. That's what Lily was calling it. It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense that this was happening at all. "You're telling me it was a mistake? You think that's going to make this better?" Anna's voice cracked, the anger surfacing again. She had trusted Lily. They had shared everything, every secret, every doubt. And now, everything felt like a lie. Lily looked down at her hands, not daring to meet Anna's eyes. "I never meant to hurt you, Anna, I swear, but I was wrong. I should have told you. I should have stopped it." The words were empty, meaningless. Anna wasn't sure if she could believe anything Lily said anymore. The conversation dragged on, each word more painful than the last. Anna listened as Lily tried to explain herself, but all Anna could hear was the hollow ring of her excuses. She had tried to justify her actions, but none of it made sense to Anna. "How could you, Lily?" Anna finally asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. "How could you do this to me?" Lily's eyes welled with tears, and she reached across the table, her hand shaking as she placed it on Anna's. "I don't know, Anna. I don't know. It was a mistake, but you're my best friend, and I can't stand what I've done to you." Anna jerked her hand away. "Stop. You don't get to call yourself my best friend anymore," she said, her voice harsh. The words cut deeper than she had intended, but she didn't care. She was done with the lies, done with the deceit. She didn't know who Lily was anymore. "I can't forgive you," Anna continued, her voice breaking. "I can't even look at you right now." The pain of the betrayal consumed her, and she stood up abruptly, knocking over her chair. "I need to go," she whispered, unable to stay in the same room with Lily a second longer. Lily's pleas echoed behind her, but Anne didn't turn back. She couldn't. The friendship, the bond they had once shared, it was gone. And Anna was left alone, in the middle of the mess they had created. As Anna left the cafe, she could feel her heart breaking all over again. The conversation with Lily had offered no closure, no sense of peace. She had expected to feel some kind of relief, but instead, all she felt was emptiness. The walk home felt endless, each step taking her further away from the life she had known. She could still hear Lily's voice in her head, the desperation in her tone, but it no longer mattered. The damage was done. Anna couldn't escape the feeling that she was standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down at a life she no longer recognized. The weight of it all threatened to crush her. She hadn't expected to be in this place, hadn't expected that everything she had worked so hard to build would come crashing down around her. And yet, here she was, alone. She arrived at her apartment, the familiar space now feeling foreign. The walls, once filled with love and laughter, now felt cold and empty. She dropped her keys on the counter and collapsed onto the couch, staring blankly at the wall. It felt like she had lost everything: her future, her trust, her sense of self. But in the silence, one thing became clear to her: she couldn't stay here. This place, this life, none of it belonged to her anymore. She had to move on. Somehow. Days turned into weeks, and Anna found herself moving through life like a ghost, disconnected from everything around her. The vibrant city she once loved now felt like a blur of noise, a place where she didn't belong. She had tried to stay busy, to distract herself from the unbearable ache in her chest, but nothing worked. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Greg and Lily together. The image of them entwined in her mind like a poison, making her feel sick to her stomach. She had tried to reach out to friends, but even their comforting words couldn't fill the void that Greg and Lily had left in her heart. She couldn't escape the overwhelming grief and anger that seemed to follow her everywhere. No matter how much she tried to push it down, it always surfaced, choking her with its intensity. Anna spent countless hours walking the streets aimlessly, hoping to outrun her emotions, but the weight of them only grew heavier. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had failed in her relationship, failed in trusting Lily. Her phone buzzed again, and she glanced at it with a deep sense of dread. It was another message from Greg, begging for a chance to talk. Her stomach twisted. Why did he still think he could fix this? She had given him everything, her love, her trust, and now everything was broken. She had no more answers. She no longer had any fight left in her to push back the tears. She had nothing left to give. She wasn't sure who she was anymore. The woman who had once been full of hope, love, and dreams for the future was gone, replaced by someone who didn't even recognize herself in the mirror. Anna had tried everything to avoid the pain, ignoring calls, staying home, burying herself in work, but nothing worked. The grief and anger were constant companions, haunting her day and night. She avoided Greg and Lily at all costs, but they were everywhere in her life, lurking in her thoughts, in the places she once loved, and in the people she encountered. Every time she thought she might be free of them, something reminded her of their betrayal. One night, while lying in bed, Anna's phone buzzed again. It was from Lily. "Please, Anna, I miss you. I can't take this anymore. I know I've hurt you, but I need you to understand that I never meant for any of this to happen. I'm sorry." Anna sat up in bed, staring at the message in disbelief. Part of her wanted to respond, to lash out and tell Lily how much she had hurt her, but another part of her wanted to understand. Was Lily truly sorry, or was this just another attempt to save herself from the consequences of her actions? Anna knew that opening the door to forgiveness would be dangerous. Would she be able to trust Lily again? Would she ever be able to heal if she let her back in? The dilemma tore at Anna's soul. She thought about everything they had shared, the laughter, the tears, the bond that had once seemed unbreakable. And then she thought about the betrayal. She thought about how Lily had so easily crossed a line that Anna could never have imagined. There was no easy answer, no simple path forward. But Anna knew one thing: whatever choice she made, it would shape the rest of her life. Anna couldn't escape the constant thoughts of Greg and Lily. They were like a soundtrack playing in the back of her mind, a reminder of the past she couldn't seem to outrun. Every corner she turned, she saw their faces in her mind: Greg's smiling eyes, Lily's comforting presence. It was like they were ghosts, haunting her every move. The emotional exhaustion was taking its toll, and she couldn't ignore the toll it was having on her mental and physical health. She had lost weight, her skin had paled, and her energy was drained. Every morning was a battle to get out of bed, to face a world that no longer felt like hers. But no matter how hard she tried to focus on other things, their betrayal was always there, lurking in the background. She decided to take a walk to clear her mind, hoping that the fresh air would provide some much-needed perspective. As she wandered aimlessly through the park, she tried to force herself to breathe, to take in the sights around her. But everything felt so distant. The flowers in bloom, the children playing, even the sun shining in the sky, all of it felt irrelevant. Nothing mattered anymore. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was watching life from the outside, as if she no longer belonged in this world. She was trapped in a version of herself that didn't fit, a person who was broken, angry, and unsure. She had loved, and she had lost, and now she didn't know how to put the pieces back together. The weeks passed, and Anna found herself sinking deeper into isolation. Her friends reached out, but she couldn't find the strength to let them in. She didn't want to burden anyone with her pain, especially not after everything that had happened. She thought about reaching out to her family, but the shame she felt kept her silent. What would they think of her? Of her inability to keep her relationship intact? Of the betrayal that had torn her apart? Her self-doubt was a constant companion, echoing in the quiet moments when she was alone with her thoughts. The only company she had was her grief, and even that felt like it was fading, leaving her numb. Anna stopped going to work as often. She stopped seeing friends. Dude. She spent hours locked in her apartment, staring at the walls, unable to find the motivation to do anything. The only thing that seemed to matter was the pain she carried with her. One evening, she decided to visit the coffee shop she and Greg used to frequent. It had always been their spot, their place of comfort, where they had shared quiet mornings and long talks. Now walking through the door felt like walking into a memory she didn't want to relive. The barista smiled at her, and for a moment, Anna felt a pang of normalcy, as though things were still as they had been before everything fell apart. But as she sat down with her coffee, the weight of the memories hit her all over again. She had tried to outrun them, but they were always there, lurking in the corners of her mind, reminding her that nothing would ever be the same. It was in the quiet moments of solitude that Anna began to realize something. The pain wasn't going to go away. It wasn't going to disappear overnight, and there was no magical fix. Healing would take time. She didn't know how long it would take or what her life would look like when it was over, But she knew one thing: she had to start moving forward. She couldn't keep living in the past, couldn't keep dwelling on what had been lost. The betrayal had taken so much from her: her trust, her sense of security, her faith in the people she had loved. But she still had herself. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to start rebuilding. She didn't have all the answers. She didn't know what the future held. But she was finally ready to take that first step. As she stood in front of the mirror, she wiped away the last of her tears and squared her shoulders. It wasn't easy. It wasn't pretty. But it was a beginning. Anna took a deep breath, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to feel hope. Hope for the future. Hope for herself. She wasn't sure what would come next, but she was determined to find out. It had been weeks since Anna had made her decision to move on from Greg and Lily. Yet, even as time passed, a feeling of unease settled in her chest. Despite the closure she had tried to find, something deep inside her still didn't feel right. Her mind constantly returned to that one moment, the moment she walked in on Greg and Lily, but the details surrounding that memory felt incomplete. There had been moments, small clues in their conversations and their behavior, that Anna had dismissed. Now they felt like pieces of a puzzle that were too big to ignore. It was as though something was still hidden beneath the surface, something that Anna hadn't fully uncovered. After a sleepless night, she finally decided to do something she had been avoiding. She would go through Greg's things. It wasn't easy, and she wasn't sure what she was hoping to find, but the question gnawed at her. What had really happened? Did they plan it? Was this some affair that had been going on for a long time, or was it a moment of weakness? There was a nagging feeling in her gut that she needed answers. As she rifled through the items in Greg's apartment, papers, photographs, receipts, her eyes fell on something she hadn't noticed before. A journal. At first, she thought it was his, but then she realized it had a different handwriting. It was Lily's. Her heart sank as she opened the first page, the words jumping out at her. "I never thought I'd fall for Greg, but here I am, caught in a web I can't untangle." Anna felt her breath catch. This wasn't just a one-time mistake. This wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. They had planned it. And now, Anna had the proof. The journal didn't hold just one revelation. It was a trail of secrets, each page more damning than the last. As Anna read, the words on the pages cut through her like a knife. Lily's confessions were raw, detailing her guilt, but also her growing attachment to Greg. In one entry, Lily wrote, "I can't stop thinking about him. I know it's wrong, but every time we're together, I feel like we belong." Anna's heart raced as she read further, each entry drawing her deeper into a story she never wanted to be a part of. Lily's feelings for Greg had grown, and they had continued their affair in secret for months. Anna's mind struggled to process what she was reading. How could Lily, her best friend, hide this from her? How could Greg do this, knowing how much Anna loved him? The anger that had been simmering beneath the surface erupted, leaving Anna with no words. She felt betrayed all over again, but this time the betrayal was deeper. It wasn't just about the affair, it was about the manipulation, the deceit. This had been planned. It had been deliberate. They had both lied to her, and the truth had been hidden in plain sight. She had trusted them both with her heart, and they had both shattered it. The weight of the journal in her hands felt like a burden, but it also gave her something else: clarity. She knew now that she could never go back to either of them, no matter how much it hurt. The truth had come out, and there was no way to undo it. Anna sat there, the journal spread out in front of her, her mind spinning. She felt like she was suffocating under the weight of what she had learned. Her thoughts were a tangled mess, trying to make sense of the web of lies she had been caught in. For so long, she had believed in the version of events that Greg and Lily had presented to her, their apologies, their promises that it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. But now, sitting in the quiet of Greg's apartment, Anna realized how much she had been deceived. She had been naive, and the truth was more painful than she could have ever imagined. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about the lies, the betrayal of trust, and the way they had manipulated her. Anna ran her fingers through her hair, her frustration mounting. She had spent so many nights crying, asking herself why it had to happen. But now she had answers. The answers she didn't want. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. How could they have done this to her? How could they have destroyed everything she had believed in? She had given them both everything, her love, her trust, and they had taken it all, turning it into something ugly. She wanted to call them, to confront them, but what was the point? What could she possibly say to make them understand the depth of her pain? The truth was clear now. Greg and Lily had made their choices, and now Anna had to make hers. The decision was clear. She couldn't allow them back into her life. The day after discovering the journal, Anna made the decision to confront both Greg and Lily. She couldn't let them get away with this anymore. She couldn't keep living with the weight of their lies. Her mind was clear now, and her heart, though still broken, had become hardened by the truth. She met Greg first, at a coffee shop they used to frequent. The moment she sat down across from him, she could see the guilt written all over his face. He tried to speak, but Anna cut him off. "I know everything, Greg," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I know about the affair. I know about everything." Greg's face drained of color, and for a moment, he said nothing. Anna's eyes were cold, her gaze unwavering. She had been waiting for this moment, and now that it was here, she couldn't stop the words from pouring out. "You betrayed me," she said quietly, the words sharp and final. "You both did." Greg opened his mouth to speak, but Anna held up a hand. "I don't want your apology. I don't want any more lies. It's over, Greg. It was over the moment you chose her over me." The pain in Anna's chest was still there, but it was now tempered by a sense of relief. This was the closure she needed. There was nothing Greg could say that would undo what had happened. "Goodbye, Greg," Anna whispered before standing and walking away, leaving him behind for good. After Greg, it was Lily's turn. Anna didn't want to meet her, didn't want to hear another round of excuses, but deep down, she knew she had to. Lily had been her best friend, and even though Anna could never trust her again, she needed to confront her face to face. The meeting was set at a small park near Anna's apartment, a place they used to walk together, talking about everything and nothing. When Lily arrived, her eyes were red from crying, and she looked as though she hadn't slept in days. "Anna, please," Lily said, her voice shaky. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I never wanted to hurt you. I never meant for it to go this far." Anna looked at her for a moment, studying her face. The guilt was there, but so was something else. Something that Anna couldn't quite place. She wanted to be angry, to yell at Lily for what she had done, but instead Anna simply said, "You betrayed me. You broke my heart, Lily." Her voice cracked with emotion, but she held it together. "I can't forgive you. Not now, not ever." Lily's face crumpled, and she reached for Anna's hand. But Anna pulled away. "Don't. Just don't. It's over." And with that, Anna walked away, leaving Lily behind, the final piece of her past falling away as she moved toward her future. Days blurred together as Anna continued to withdraw further into herself. The anger, the sorrow, and the betrayal were like weights pressing down on her chest, making each breath harder to take. She had tried so hard to keep going, to find some semblance of normalcy after everything that had happened. But it wasn't working. The more she tried to convince herself that she could heal, the more she realized that the damage was too deep. The past few weeks had been a struggle to even get out of bed, to face the world outside. Her friends reached out, but each time she found herself pushing them away. It wasn't that she didn't want to be around them, it was just that their pity felt suffocating. She couldn't bear the looks of concern in their eyes, as if they could somehow fix her pain with a few kind words. No one understood what it felt like to be deceived by the two people she had trusted most. And no one could fix the emptiness she felt inside. Anna sat alone in her living room, staring at the blank walls, her thoughts drifting to the life she had once shared with Greg. How quickly everything had unraveled. Her eyes were dry now, but her heart ached with every beat. She didn't know how to fix herself, how to make the hurt stop. It felt like there was nothing left to hope for. As the days passed, the heaviness grew, and Anna found herself questioning who she was now. She had given everything to her relationship with Greg, to the friendship with Lily, and now it was all gone. The thought of starting over seemed impossible. She didn't know where to go from here, what her life was supposed to look like. All she knew was that she couldn't keep living in the shadows of what had been. And yet, the thought of moving forward felt like a mountain she couldn't climb. The next day, Anna made the decision to reach out. Not to Greg or Lily, but to herself. She needed to start the process of healing, to find a way to cope with the crushing weight of her emotions. She decided to visit a therapist, a step she had been resisting for weeks. It wasn't that she didn't believe in therapy. It was just that she felt unworthy of any kind of help. She felt broken, and part of her was convinced that no one could fix her. But that morning, as she sat in the therapist's office, Anna finally realized that she couldn't keep going like this. She couldn't keep burying her feelings, pretending they didn't exist. The therapist spoke softly, encouraging Anna to express her thoughts, her pain. For the first time in a long time, Anna let herself be vulnerable. She talked about Greg, about Lily, about the betrayal that had shattered everything she thought she knew. And as she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes. They had been waiting to come out, but for so long, Anna had held them back. She had tried to be strong, but now, in this moment, she finally allowed herself to feel the weight of what had happened. It was painful, but in a way, it felt like a release. The therapist didn't try to fix her or offer quick solutions. She simply listened, validating Anna's pain. It was the first step in a long journey, but it was a step nonetheless. Anna didn't know how she would heal, or what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like there was hope. She was still broken, but she wasn't alone. As the days went on, Anna began to slowly make changes in her life. She started leaving the house more, taking small steps toward re-engaging with the world outside her four walls. The therapy sessions became a source of stability, helping her work through the complexities of her emotions. But there were still moments when she felt lost, as if she were drifting in a sea of memories and regrets. One afternoon, Anna found herself at a cafe, sitting at a table by the window. The sunlight streamed in through the glass, casting a warm glow on the empty seat across from her. It was the first time she had ventured out by herself in weeks, and she felt both liberated and terrified. She ordered a coffee, but the taste was bland, like everything around her had been muted by the weight of her thoughts. She thought about Greg, and then she thought about how she had allowed him to take so much from her. Her sense of identity had been tied to him, to their shared future, and now she was left to pick up the pieces of herself that she had forgotten along the way. The more Anna thought about it, the clearer it became that the person she was before Greg, before Lily, was lost. She didn't know who she was anymore, but maybe, just maybe, she could start discovering that person again. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew she couldn't keep living in the past. The pain was still there, but she was beginning to see the possibility of a new chapter. For the first time in months, Anna allowed herself to smile. It wasn't a perfect smile, and it wasn't a happy one, but it was a sign that maybe, just maybe, she could heal. A few days later, Anna decided to visit the place where she and Greg had first met. It was a small park near the lake, a place that had once felt magical, filled with laughter and promises of a future together. Now, standing by the water, it felt different. The memories that had once been sweet now seemed tainted. But Anna didn't want to run from her past anymore. She wanted to face it, to look it in the eye, and say goodbye. She stood at the edge of the lake, watching the water ripple gently in the breeze, and for the first time, she didn't feel the weight of regret. It was as if the lake was washing away some of the sorrow, leaving her with a sense of clarity. Anna closed her eyes and breathed deeply, letting the cool air fill her lungs. She could still feel the sting of betrayal, the sharpness of the pain. But it was no longer the only thing that defined her. She had allowed herself to grieve, to let go of what had been, and now she was ready to embrace the future, whatever it held. The memories of Greg, of Lily, would always be a part of her, but they no longer had the power to hold her back. She was reclaiming her life, step by step. Anna opened her eyes and smiled, not because everything was fixed, but because she was moving forward. A month passed, and though the pain of the betrayal was still there, Anna began to rebuild. Her therapy sessions had helped her process her grief, and slowly, she started re-engaging with life. She had joined a yoga class, something she used to love but had abandoned in the wake of her relationship. It wasn't much, but it was a start. She felt stronger now, more centered. And for the first time in a long while, Anna could see a future that didn't include Greg or Lily. It was a future she would build on her own. She wasn't sure what would come next, whether she would ever trust again, or whether love would find its way back into her life. But she knew she didn't need Greg or Lily to be whole. She had found a part of herself again, a part she had lost somewhere along the way. As she walked out of her yoga class, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in months, Anna knew that the hardest part of her journey was behind her. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Anna felt hopeful about what might come next. She wasn't defined by the betrayal. She was defined by her strength, her resilience, and her ability to move forward. Anna's journey toward healing had been slow, but it was real. After months of intense emotional turmoil, the fog was finally beginning to lift. She had spent countless hours reflecting, processing the betrayal, and working through her anger and grief. The therapy sessions had helped her piece together her fractured sense of self. She could feel the subtle transformation inside her, like a seed beginning to sprout after a long winter. But it wasn't just the therapy that had aided in her healing. It was the small steps she had taken, returning to her hobbies, taking up yoga, reconnecting with old friends. These small victories had begun to add up. But the most profound change was the realization that she was not the same woman she had been before the betrayal. Anna had grown stronger, more resilient, and more in tune with her own needs and desires. The more she embraced this new version of herself, the more she realized that she was capable of handling whatever life threw at her. She had survived the deepest betrayal and had emerged from it with a deeper understanding of who she was. Now, it was time for her to explore the world outside her inner circle, to begin living for herself and not for others. She wasn't fully healed, and she didn't expect to be, but she was ready. Ready to embrace her life again, no longer weighed down by the past, but motivated by the future. Anna took a deep breath as she stood in front of her apartment window, looking out at the city that had once felt so daunting. She now saw it differently, more expansive, more full of possibilities. And for the first time in a long time, Anna felt excited about what lay ahead. One morning, Anna woke up and felt different. The sense of heaviness that had clung to her for months had lifted. She hadn't realized how suffocating the weight of the past had been until it started to fade. She took a deep breath and smiled. It wasn't an immediate transformation. It never was, but it was a shift. A new beginning. She had been avoiding certain places for a long time, places that reminded her of Greg and Lily. But today she decided to visit the local bookstore, the one she and Greg had loved to visit together. Walking through the doors, she felt an odd sense of peace. The familiar scent of coffee and old books filled her nostrils, and for a moment she could almost hear the laughter they had shared in that very space. But instead of the rush of pain that usually followed, there was something different today, a quiet acceptance. She wandered through the aisles, running her fingers over the spines of the books she once loved. She wasn't running from the past anymore. She was allowing herself to acknowledge it without being consumed by it. As she walked around the store, Anna felt a sense of freedom, a realization that the memories of Greg didn't have to haunt her. They were part of her past, but they didn't define her future. The person she was becoming was far stronger than the one who had walked into that bookstore months ago. She didn't need to erase the past to move forward. She just needed to accept it and use it to fuel her growth. As Anna walked out of the bookstore, a sense of peace washed over her. She had come to terms with the past, but there was still one thing left to do: reclaim her power. She had spent so long being defined by Greg and Lily, by the betrayal that had shattered her. But it was time to redefine herself. She was more than just the woman who had been betrayed. She was Anna, the woman who had survived, who had learned, and who had grown. She started by making small changes in her daily life, arranging her apartment in a way that felt more like her, changing her routine, and even picking up new hobbies that brought her joy. The first thing she did was go for a run in the morning. She hadn't run in months, not since the betrayal had consumed her, but today, the idea of it felt freeing. The rhythm of her feet hitting the pavement was like a metaphor for her life, each step a small victory, each mile a reminder that she was moving forward. Her heart beat faster, not from the exertion, but from the realization that she was finally taking control of her life. She was building herself back up, not because she needed to, but because she wanted to. Anna's run ended at a quiet park, where she stopped to catch her breath. She looked around, taking in the beauty of the trees, the sunlight filtering through the leaves, and the children playing in the distance. The world was alive, and she was part of it again. The more Anna ran, the more she began to realize something profound. Healing wasn't a destination. It was a journey. It wasn't about reaching a specific point and saying, "I'm healed." It was about embracing the process, allowing herself to feel every emotion, every high and low. And it was about accepting that she would never be the same person she was before the betrayal. She didn't need to be. The woman she had become was far stronger, wiser, and more authentic. As Anna continued to run, she started to appreciate her newfound resilience. She realized that she didn't have to prove anything to anyone. Not to Greg, not to Lily, and not even to herself. Her worth wasn't defined by others' actions or opinions. She was enough as she was. The more she reflected on her journey, the more Anna felt a sense of gratitude. It was hard to admit, but she was grateful for what the betrayal had taught her. It had forced her to look deep within, to confront her vulnerabilities, and to rebuild herself from the ground up. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living, truly living. And that realization filled her with a sense of peace that she had been missing for so long. Anna didn't need anyone's validation to feel whole. She was whole on her own. One evening, Anna found herself sitting on the rooftop of her apartment building, watching the sun set over the city. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, and the cool breeze lifted her hair slightly. She had always loved sunsets, the way the colors filled the sky, and the world seemed to pause for just a moment. It felt like a fitting metaphor for where she was in her life. An ending, but also a beginning. The last few months had been the hardest she had ever faced. But they had also been the most transformative. She had lost a part of herself in the process, but she had found a stronger, more authentic version in its place. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Anna felt a deep sense of contentment. She wasn't perfect, and her journey wasn't over, but she was finally at peace with who she had become. She looked at the city below, with all its noise and chaos, and realized that she was ready for whatever came next. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, Anna felt ready to face it head-on. She didn't need to know every detail or have a perfect plan, she just needed to trust herself. And as the last rays of sunlight faded into the night, Anna knew she was finally free. A few months had passed, and Anna was still on her path of healing, but there was one last step she knew she had to take. Face Greg. The decision was difficult, but it wasn't about forgiveness, it was about closure. She had moved on from the anger, from the pain, and now, it was time to finally speak the words she had kept bottled up for so long. After everything that had happened, Anna had found peace within herself, but there were still unanswered questions lingering in the air, and she realized she couldn't move forward without confronting the past one final time. As she walked to the cafe where they had once shared so many memories, her heart was calm, yet her mind raced with thoughts of what she was about to do. Greg had sent her a message, asking for a chance to talk, but Anna hadn't replied until now. She wasn't sure if she was ready for this moment, but she knew she needed to be. When she walked into the cafe, Greg was already sitting at a corner table, looking up at her with a hesitant expression. He was no longer the man she had once known, but instead, he looked like someone she barely recognized. His face was older, marked with regret, but the same sadness in his eyes remained. "Anna," he said, his voice soft, "I'm so sorry for everything. I've hurt you in ways I'll never be able to take back." Anna stood still for a moment, letting his words settle into her. The ache in her chest that used to feel so overwhelming had softened, and now she could see him for what he was, a man who had made mistakes, a man who was lost. But she wasn't lost anymore. "Greg," Anna said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "You've hurt me, and you've hurt Lily too. But I'm not here for you to apologize. I'm here because I need closure. I need to tell you that I'm done. I can't carry the weight of this anymore. I have moved on, and you should too." She could feel a sense of relief wash over her as she spoke the words, the final words that closed the door on her past. Greg nodded, understanding that there was nothing left to say. Anna turned to walk away, but before she did, she paused and looked back at him. "I hope you find peace, Greg, but I won't be the one to give it to you." With that, Anna left the cafe, her heart lighter than it had been in years. After leaving the cafe, Anna felt the last remnants of anger and sadness fall away, leaving behind a strange sense of calm. She had done what she needed to do. The weight of the past was no longer dragging her down, and she could finally breathe without the constant ache of betrayal. But her path to healing wasn't just about confronting Greg. It was about rebuilding her own life, creating a future she could be proud of. The days that followed were filled with small victories. She started a new project at work that excited her, reconnected with old friends, and even began traveling again. The world was big, and for the first time in ages, Anna wanted to experience all it had to offer. As she sat in a park one afternoon, watching the world go by, Anna couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. She had been broken, yes, but now she was whole again. And it wasn't because of Greg or Lily or anyone else. It was because of herself. The pain would always be a part of her, but it didn't define her anymore. She had found her strength, her voice, and her independence. It was a strange feeling to be free of the weight of others' expectations, to no longer be defined by the betrayal. She could now live her life on her terms, and that was worth more than anything else. For the first time in a long while, Anna felt a sense of purpose, a reason to keep moving forward. The future was hers, and she was ready to embrace it. One evening, as Anna sat at her desk at home, working on a new personal project she had been passionate about, she received an unexpected message. It was from Lily. Anna had not heard from her since their last encounter, and the message was brief. "I miss you, Anna. I know I can't undo what I've done, but I'm truly sorry. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me." Anna sat back in her chair, staring at the screen for a long moment. Part of her wanted to delete the message, to ignore it completely, but another part of her felt a sense of responsibility to herself, to acknowledge what Lily had said, even if forgiveness wasn't something she was ready to give. She thought about the woman she used to be, the one who had trusted Lily with everything, and the woman she had become, the one who had learned to value herself, to protect her heart. It was impossible to ignore the pain that Lily's betrayal had caused, but Anna had already let go of the anger that had once consumed her. She had learned that forgiveness wasn't about the other person, it was about releasing herself from the grip of resentment. After a long pause, Anna began typing her response. "I can't forgive you right now, Lily, but I am learning to forgive myself, and maybe one day, I can find it in my heart to forgive you too. I hope you're finding your own way." Anna hit send and exhaled deeply. She didn't know if she would ever truly forgive Lily, but for now this was enough. She had said what she needed to say, and that was a step toward healing, a step toward moving forward with her life. As the weeks passed, Anna continued to live her life with purpose and clarity. She didn't know what the future would bring, but she had found a sense of peace that allowed her to face each day with an open heart. She reconnected with her passion for painting, something she had abandoned years ago, and soon found herself lost in the creative process. Each brushstroke on the canvas was a reminder that she was capable of creating something beautiful from her pain. It wasn't about the finished piece. It was about the act of creation, of expressing herself in a way that felt empowering. One evening, after finishing a painting, Anna stood back to admire her work. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers, and that was all that mattered. She thought about how far she had come, how much she had grown, and how much more she had yet to explore. The future was still uncertain, but Anna now felt confident that she could handle whatever came her way. She was no longer afraid of being alone, of facing challenges, or of taking risks. She had discovered that she was enough. And in that moment, as she stood in front of her painting, Anna realized that she was exactly where she needed to be. Months later, Anna found herself standing on the edge of a new chapter. She had completed a solo trip abroad, something she had always dreamed of doing. And now, as she walked through the streets of a new city, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The trip had been a gift to herself, a way of proving that she could thrive on her own, without relying on anyone else for her happiness. As she stood by the water, looking out at the setting sun, Anna felt a wave of gratitude for everything she had overcome. The pain, the heartbreak, the betrayal, those things had shaped her, but they no longer controlled her. She had learned that she was the author of her own story. And now, she was ready to write the next chapter. There was no more fear, no more hesitation. She was open to the unknown, to the possibilities that awaited her. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Anna smiled, knowing that the best was yet to come.